Good morning, Michael. Oh, Michael's frozen on me. Well, hopefully Michael will be back. He'll jump back in here. Well, good morning, everybody. And it's great to be here. Here he comes. Don't we love technology? It's great to be here for Experience Friday Live on Friday the 13th. And it is so awesome to have our guest here with us today. Just a couple of reminders. Next week, we are really honored to have Laura Hall, who's the Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience. We're going to talk about how does your sales team impact your customer experience next week with her. So really excited to have her with us. And again, the reason Michael and I started this show was to just talk about why experience really matters within an organization. And what is going on in the experience world today. I've had the honor over the last month to actually speak at two events in the industry. And man, there's a lot of change going on. And I was really honored. I have known this gentleman through LinkedIn, but then to meet him in person in Atlanta a little over a month ago. Let me just tell you a little bit about our guest. After 2 decades leading CRM and customer experience efforts at ADP, Hewlett Packard, and DXC, JC Quintana, see, I had to get it right, co-founded Customer Experience and Design Thinking Certificates programs hosted by 14 U.S. universities, and he is the author of 2 books focused on relationship quality through human-centered design and technology. So we're going to bring JC up, and it looks like we got Michael back here. Let's see if we get him up here. There he is. And there's JC. Good morning, JC.
Good morning. I love that you pronounced my name right. Love that.
Well, Michael's probably laughing because I usually screw up names really well. So,
okay.
But we did it, and it's great to have you here with us, JC. And I'm so excited to jump in and have some great conversations. You and I, Michael wasn't able to be in Atlanta, but you and I met finally in person in Atlanta. We've been following each other for a long time on LinkedIn. And I love what you talk about. And it actually leans into our book, which is really funny because I know JC's got a copy of it sitting there next to him. He's been reading our book, Michael, and there's mine about relationships and radical relationships. And so this is a great conversation, and I think we're in that point in our world right now where people are really trying to figure out what relationships look like in the workplace in specific. But before we jump into that, JC, we always ask everybody this question right up front. Why do you do what you do, and what keeps you motivated as you do it?
Yeah, great question. I love the fact that we met at this customer experience event, by the way, Sean, because it ties into my own journey and why I do what I do. So real quick, I started my journey in technology, of all things, customer relationship management technology for a long time, going out, implementing all sorts of CRM systems that right? Brands that systems that people use all the time in sales. And at some point, I had to kind of, I woke up one day, I was in Florida, working with the state, trying to help the children of the state of Florida with all sorts of things that improve their life. And I thought, I'm not doing customer relationship management at all. I'm just implementing technology. So the journey that brought me here had a lot to do with how do we do relationship that is really relationship. It's not a relationship system. It's not a relational database, but it is improving behavior, helping people sit face to face, having stakeholders address relational challenges. And so, what keeps me going, I think more than ever, as you noted, is we're in a time when people need relationship skills and business need people to understand what relationships are in order to even stay in business, in order to hit, that sweet spot of retention and enrichment and advocacy that every company wants.
I love it. Michael, I don't know if you want to add to JC's comments there, and I know you were getting on and logging in this morning, but I know relationships are important to you too, and how you look at them, Michael.
Yeah, they are, and I think we'll get there in the conversation, especially if we're talking radical relationships and how that affects experience. I still go on the list of being the reluctant person to the dance. So, I always have that lens of skepticism with it. So, let's jump into the conversation and see what happens.
And it's funny, Michael, before the show started and you had jumped on pre-show, actually, JC said he was to that part in the book where you talk about going to Puerto Rico, and he says, frankly, some of this scares the shit out of me. And I said, well, you're right in the boat. You're right in the boat with Michael. It scares the shit out of Michael too. So,
Yep.
Let's jump into this. Quality relationships are foundational to business success. This is something you tell us, JC, but it requires that we understand, and I love this, the cost that people pay for that quality, because there is a cost. Say more about that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that what I love about being here with you today is that if there's anybody that gets this, it's you guys, right? You write about it. You implement it at companies. You are inclusive of this concept within, making people address experiential things. So I love that we're doing this together. But, as with many things that we do in the world, there are some foundational things that come from psychology and behavior, and great methodologies have been established over time. And one of those, and I kind of rely a lot of this on my work, is social exchange theory or independence theory. And it simply says that, when people think about outcomes, in order to determine if those outcomes align, they have to make this little calculation of, the reward minus the cost. So yes, doesn't matter what relationship it is, what stakeholder you're dealing with, it is costing people something to have a relationship that yields the outcome that they expect. Maybe the employee is thinking to themselves, I'm here, I get paid, but that's not really the cost that you're paying for them. You may be paying lack of engagement as a cost. You may be paying maybe unethical behavior as a cost, right? That you're not thinking about. And you have to sit down and be able to had that discussion. So the foundation of a lot of my work, which, by the way, I think it differs from a lot of companies in that my focus has been primarily on dialogue. There's a lot of people that deal with difficult conversations, and I think that's a skill that's necessary. I love the fact that you're elevating the idea that relationships must be radical, and we gotta be able to take risk, right? I love that. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't know how to sit down and talk to one another, and they don't know how to be able to say, by the way, this relationship is costing me too much. What do we do about it so that both parties feel that the relationship is equitable? And so that's really the heart of that concept of cost, and the outcome too, right? You can't leave the outcome without the cost. If I am an employer and my goal in life of having relationship with my employees and my customers is strictly to have more customers, to enrich the sale, upgrade or upsell, and have advocacy about having people saying, I'll recommend you to others. If that's the outcome, how much is it costing them to get that outcome? And is the outcome of the employees and the cost that they're having to invest to get there, to meet your goals, is it even the same? So yes, dialogue about cost is very essential to every relationship.
Michael, I know you've got lots. I'm going to let you jump in on this because this whole concept with radical relationships that we even talk about.
Right. And tying it back to experience, right? So you can't deliver an experience for any human in any of the X's, right, without having to pay attention to all those hierarchy of needs of the humans, right? The very basis of that is safety. If you look at Maslow's, right? So, and that's what you're talking about in terms of they don't have the skills. It's skills, capacity, motivation, right? All that kind of coming together to stack up. And what at what point is that too much problem, right? When is it unsolvable? It is not worth me working through this. It's not worth me. If I've created this monster, what is the solution for this monster? And the other side of that was, what is all the prevention that we need to be able to do to prevent the monster from being created?
Yeah. Unlike, or I would say just like interpersonal relationships, I think we get into relationships that never should have been, right? Or relationships that are not willing or are open to risk, or where the idea of taking risk is not equitable. And so I don't think that they're much different, right? And I joke that it does feel like marriage counseling sometimes, because sometimes you'll have an employer and an employee sitting in a room, and the employer has the upper hand, so they take advantage of that, and they're not transparent, they're not candid, they're not honest, and the employee, fearing for their job, is also not honest and open and transparent and candid. So we gotta find a place, whether it be with the employee relationship, with the customer relationship, or with the partner, right? Because many of us sell through partner channels, that we have those skills, like you said, Michael. We have those skills where the conversation is about, in my opinion, 7 things, but it's about things like needs, characteristics, circumstances, and capacity, which University of Toronto is doing some great work in that N3C aspect of dialogue. But we got to be always monitoring whether or not those things have changed, and also willing to discuss it in a candid, open dialogue that leads to, again, mutual enjoyment, fulfillment, equity, and enrichment.
So go ahead, Michael. No, go ahead.
Well, and I think there's an alignment of all of that, right? So, and that's what we talk about in terms of the experience promise within our experience ecosystems of, we've been working recently with some frontline workers who are actually causing more trouble for themselves in their work because they're so trying to please their customers. They're over functioning for their customers because somewhere they got a message or created a message or misinterpreted a message, is that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to help the customer. Well, you can overfunction in helping the customer and do serious damage on the back end of all your operations, right? And so it's aligning those messages and expectations and clearing it up to say, this is what you should be doing, and we're going to support you as you do it, because the current population of customers, it's a lot of angry, hurt, scared, fearful people right now who are taking it out on the frontline workers, right? I called Delta the other day because I made a mistake booking my ticket, and it was a stupid mistake. And so I was making small talk with a Delta representative. Plane flights are so expensive right now, and I asked, what kind of treatment are you getting right now? And they said, you would not believe how often we get yelled at for all these plane fares being so expensive. It's not their fault.
We created that. I mean, you're exactly right. We created that with this customers always right mantra, right?
Exactly.
In what relationship ever, across any relationship you have, does the idea that only what the other person wants matters? When, right?
Yep.
In what relationship can you be successful without equity? Even relationships with our cable companies and things like that, we see a little bit of abuse in that environment, and the consumer right now has gotten the upper hand to where we're so worried about losing business that we're giving them everything, so they're taking advantage of that and they're mistreating companies. That's wrong. But yeah, exactly. It's a bad habit we created ourselves, and we gotta we got to take risks to fix it.
So I want to ask this question then, because I love where you two are going with it, and you just started that. So can you really get customer experience right without understanding your customer's relationship expectations then?
Wow. So this one gets me in trouble all the time. I can't believe you asked me this one, Sean, because, I am part of the CX community, and, over the last 10, 11 years, I would say even all the way back to Forrester's work and Kerry Bodine and Harley Manning's book, Outside In, we've become more aware of that. And I support that work 100%. I think it's fantastic work. But unfortunately, no, I have to say, you cannot have experience definition without relationship expectation definition, right? And I'll give you a quick example. If I am an Amazon customer, right? Even though many people will say, "Oh, it's just a transactional thing with Amazon," I would say, nay, right? Nay, I say, because you are, through things like Prime membership, defining the terms of that relationship, and the expectations of those relationships are helping Amazon define what that experience looks like for that particular relationship. It's not just about customer segments in business, right? It is also about what those customer segments expect in their relationship outcomes, in their relationship expectations, right? So no, I will say, and I'll stand by it, that you gotta have relationship definition before you can even figure out what that experience looks like. Because in some cases, and you all know this very well, right? When I walk into Walt Disney World, I have a predefined experience in my head. Where did that come from? It came from the way Disney sets the relationship with specific people, children, adult, parents, vendors, right? And so we could say that, yes, that the mantra of customer experience is very accurate. Give people what they need, make it easy, decrease friction, increase accessibility, give them enjoyment, and hopefully emotional connection. I agree. But those three things and the experience that we deliver based on those three things is very much dependent on what that relationship is and the expectations of that relationship.
And there are boundaries, right? And abuse is not okay. And that just seems to be where we're going so easily as humans right now.
Well, and I have to say, I was, and this was I didn't know you, Michael, you were going to talk about the Delta thing, but yeah, right. Like, so we all know the stories that are happening on flights, but for me, something that was really powerful when I was, Michael and I were in Boston earlier this week. The head attendant of the flight crew actually wrote me a note. And handed it to me and said, Mr. Nason, thank you so much for your loyalty and business with Delta as a Diamond Medallion. Have an amazing rest of your week, Alex. Right? And I think that's what you were even getting at too, JC. Like, again, and we've talked a lot about Disney. Obviously, my past there is the mantra of the customer is always right is so not true, because the customer is not always right. But you can make the customer feel like they're right, even in a situation when they're wrong, right? And that's part of that relationship,
right? And more clearly, you can make them feel human, and you can make them feel validated in their feelings.
Yes,
yeah,
that's different than saying that they're right. You can say, I know this is frustrating for you right now. I'm sorry for that. I'm going to do everything I can to solve this with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's different than, you know what, you are right. We are wrong. It is okay to yell at us.
And a great point, right? So that includes the fact that we have relationship with human beings just on the fact that they're human beings, right? And so if we were to chase the experience only mantra, it would not be cost effective for business. We cannot give a great experience to just every human being on the planet, right? We don't have the budget, we don't have the time, we don't have the resources. So we do have an obligation to do the right thing, because we're human beings with other human beings, no matter what. But then we also have the responsibility to define what relationships our value proposition can support and then deliver great experiences based on those relationships, right? Which in cases have levels, like the platinum level and the premium level. And based on that level of relationship and the expectations of those relationships, we build or mold or design an experience based on that.
Well, and that's, Michael and I talk about this a lot in Vegas. Vegas does a really good job at this, right? Like the different loyalty programs that every casino has or whatever, right? And airlines, I only fly Delta. Why? Because now I'm diamond status and I get a lot of perks. But it's about whatever level, that's when people talk even again about Disney. You have, economy resorts, you have mid-tier resorts, you have deluxe resorts, right? And depending on where you're at, depends how that experience is, but it still makes you feel like you're, a valuable person to them, no matter where you're at. And that's what I always love about Vegas, is because they try to make you feel like a very important person, no matter where you're at. So, well, listen, you wrote a book called Serious Relationships, and you talk about the 7 elements of successful business relationships. Can you share with us real fast those 7 levels and why they are important? I wish we had tons more time, but I want to make sure we talk about that.
I'll go through them real quick, and it goes back to the conversation that we had around cost, right? And the conversation we had around people need to be able to sit down and understand where it is that is costing them too much. Where does it need to be, the cost needs to be alleviated, where maybe one person, for the sake of the relationship, may be taking more of the cost in a certain area. That's what the 7 things are. And so in the book, I talk about definition costs us money, meaning that sometimes we can go back and forth about the outcomes of the relationship, levels of formality, ambiguities that are undefined, and they cost us time, money, and effort. That's got to be one conversation that we need to have and find equity in, understanding who we are as human beings. Because if I'm a Puerto Rican man in a culture that does not value family, then it's affecting me directly as a human being. So, that level of centricity is important. We got to have conversation about engagement and level of engagement, knowledge, because building relationships takes knowledge, accountability to the relationship. One of your favorite ones, transparency, right? Because again, maybe you expect more transparency than I do, and that needs to be addressed. And then the last one is the environment, because once again, relationships, once they're defined, expectations set, people expect certain things from the environment where that relationship lives. At Disney, it's a really high level of experience. In some places, it's a very low level of experience. At a restaurant, you expect an environment that's safe. At an insult restaurant, you expect to be insulted, right? And so the experience needs to be defined, and those are the 7 things. And again, you gotta address costs and equity in the relationship across those 7 things.
Well, I love it. And thank you for being here with us, JC. For those of you that have been listening, want to know more, you see it right there on JC's name, dialogueprime.com. As well, go out and follow him on LinkedIn. He posts some great stuff out there. So again, JC, thank you so much for being here. If you'll hang out for just a little bit, Michael and I are going to close up, and we'll come back and say goodbye to you.
Yeah, let's hurry up, because I have a really great book I need to go back to reading.
Well, thank you. Well, all right, Michael. It's Friday the 13th.
It is.
Those of you that have been following my little journey, as soon as I hang up from here, I'm heading to the hospital and going in for surgery this afternoon. I don't know if that's a good thing on Friday the 13th or not, but hey, I'm ready to get this done. Any big plans for you this weekend?
No. I have a friend having surgery this afternoon, so there's that.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody. Again, next week, Laura Hall will be with us, Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience. We'll be talking about how does your sales team impact your customer experience, which is awesome. Also, remember with Mophie, you can get any of our resources out there as well. You can go to mofi.co or seannason.com to reach us. You can send us an email at hello@mofi.co. And don't forget to connect with Michael and I out there on LinkedIn as well. But most importantly is if you play in this experience ecosystem that we keep talking about every week with different people, we would love to have you on the show. Send us a note, reach out to us via LinkedIn, and we will get you on the show. So with that, Michael, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right.